Hey. How you guys doing? So, got another story here. It says credentialism is sinking our fertility rate. I don't know what credentialism is, but we'll find out. For countless generations, entry into adulthood was typically and quickly followed by marriage and parenthood. That's probably because people didn't live as long and they had less to do. And also, they probably had to go to sleep pretty early because there was no street lights or anything to, because when it's dark, it's really dark. They didn't have coffee, they didn't have TV, had to listen to some guy tell a story. They're pretty bored, pretty much. Nothing to distract them from, doing that. Over the last few decades, however, we have seen a precipitous decline in both marriage and fertility rates, which is fine. We have enough people, and if the number of people go down, guess what's going to go up? Marriage and parenthood. And what can be done about it? Nothing. Immigrants are going to take care of it. The societal decision to delay or abandon marriage and parenthood is, in essence, a decision to extend adolescence, sometimes indefinitely. No, it's not. If you want to insult people, go for it. But the decision to abandon marriage and parenthood is not an extended adolescence. Adolescence is already extended by the way we raise children. We literally raise children to be better children rather than better adults. That's why when people are adults, they still act like children. Just like you see kids on their phone all the time, adults are on their phone all the time. You're like, oh, what are these millennials? They're at work and they're just like texting or whatever, and they're just bored out of their mind. Because as kids, you just had fun all the time. You do whatever you want. It's free. As an adult, shit's just boring and regimented. But deciding to abandon marriage and parenthood is just, it's just, it's the natural, it's the natural habit of any creature whose population just goes out of control. If you had any animal at any point in time where their population is just out of control and they're just literally on top of each other, like city size on top of each other, they'll stop having more, it just as just natural instinct. Understanding how and why adolescence has been extended will explain why marriage and fertility rates have fallen and how these trends might be reversed. No, I guarantee you go to any place, you put maybe 20 people in a town, people are going to be looking around and be like, there's nothing here, there's no one here. They're going to start making more people. You put people in a city where there's just constant people all over the place, they're not thinking about making more people. It's just, they've done this experiment with freaking mice. They just stop reproducing after a certain point. A little more than a century ago, there was no such thing as adolescence. There was only childhood and adulthood. Exactly, because back then, people raised their children to be adults. Now, people raise children to be children until they're literally 18, and you're like, now you have to be an adult. Right that second. Most societies held a ceremony by age of 16 to mark a child's transition into adulthood. Also, they had a shorter lifespan, so shit's got to have to happen quick. The newly initiated adults were expected to begin work and not long after to get married and have children. Also, they were working way before that point. They were already working. Whatever job they expected to do at that adult age, they were already doing before that point. The modern concept of adolescence was an invention of the industrial age. As parents shift their workplace from the farm or trade shops to the factory, they could no longer have children accompanying them. Yes. Schooling had already been widespread in the United States to ensure basic literacy, but it was extended to higher grades to provide custodial care while parents went to work, as well as to cultivate the skills required for an industrial economy. Yes. The extension of schooling occurred gradually, with most Americans at the beginning of the 20th century finishing after the 8th grade as late as 1940. Fewer than a quarter of the people over the age of 25 had a high school diploma, and only 38% of those between the ages of 25 and 29 did so. Finishing school at a younger age meant that people started working younger, got married younger, and started having children younger. Yes, but also we didn't have a lot of the facilities, technology that we have today. So back then, there were a lot more jobs that needed actually hands-on work. Nowadays, there's not that many jobs that need them. I mean, most of the stuff are already built. Construction workers are either tearing stuff down or building new things occasionally. So we don't need as many people in those job fields that actually do hands-on work. So, just natural transition. And without people doing those hands-on work, a lot of the work that's required today going to require an education, but not necessarily the education that you actually need for the work that's being done. But hey, we have a system in place, and it's very hard to get people to act outside of that system because it requires work. Schooling had been dramatically extended. Now more than 90% of people over the age of 25 have a high school diploma, and more than 2/3 of those between the ages of 25 and 34 have received at least some post-secondary education. Increasing educational attachment certainly contribute to the increased skill levels and higher social wealth. They're really trying to drive home this whole education is responsible for people not wanting to get married and have kids. Having kids is expensive, and marriage also can be costly with the wedding and the everything. All of that is expensive. The ring, all of that stuff is expensive. The reason people aren't doing those two things today is because they don't have enough money. They're living paycheck to paycheck. It just costs too much. It's not a good investment. And also it's time consuming. But it also extended adolescence, a period of limbo during which people who historically would have taken on adult roles of work and family largely differ assuming those responsibilities. If we want to enjoy the benefits of higher economic production without unnecessary extended adolescence, we need to recognize that not all increases in educational attainment have been necessary to obtain economically useful skills. More and more jobs that people used to perform with high school education or less now requires at least a bachelor. Yes, because competition. There's so many people that are trained to do certain jobs that don't need all those people. So competition goes up, and the requirements also go up in order to acquiesce to the competition. For example, as higher education scholar Preston Cooper points out, 33% of secretaries hold a bachelor's degree today, compared to just 9% in 1990. More occupations require licensure post-high school or even post-bachelorette. Oh, baccalaureate? Never seen that word before. Jesus, that's a mouthful, which lengthens the time people need to be in school before they can work, even when the requirements of the positions are no more technical and the outcomes no higher quality than they were decades ago. These excessive credentialing is not economically productive or significantly delay the age when people feel ready to enter adulthood. Stop it. You're already wrong about your assumption. I get it. You think it's stupid that people need all these credentials to do these jobs, but when they get in these jobs, they actually need on-the-job training to do the actual job. I get it. It makes perfect sense. But because we over invested in education now, we have too many people with the education required to do certain jobs, and it creates competition. There's not enough jobs for everybody, and there's a lot of people quitting and going into the workplace. People get into a rut of routine of adding credentials to things just to eliminate just to eliminate certain factors that they don't want to deal with. They want to deal with certain uneducated people that might also have criminal histories or, violent tendencies or any of that stuff. So they just put the credentials up there to eliminate some of those people that they have to deal with. And then they just deal with the people with credentials. Now they have a lot of people with credentials to deal with. And now they have to eliminate them further by adding more credentials or whatever. It's just systems, man. When you deal with a large number of people, you create systems, and those systems don't always work because we keep using them beyond the point when they're useful. We are collectively rich enough to impose excessive credentialing requirements that keep people out of labor market and drive the cost of goods and services higher. We are collectively rich enough to indulge young people in overly long journeys of self-discovery as they slow walk the completion of their education. You can try to stop them if it makes you feel better. I don't know what your point is. People are going to keep doing those stuff. You can tell people they're doing something stupid, but they're like, all right, cool. And just go on, keep doing it. Because as long as someone is doing it, the other people have no choice but to keep doing it, because trying to do something different is not going to work. Increasing subsidies for education, forgiving student loans, and increasing child care subsidies laden with burdensome regulations will only compound the problem. What's your suggestion? It's generally unhealthy for society to extend adolescence if people do not assume adult responsibilities at a reasonable age. What are you saying? Force people to get married and have children? They may never assume those responsibilities, abandon self-absorption of youth. See, this is the thing. People look through history and they're like, oh, back then men were men, women were women, people were tougher, and they were well. Back then, people didn't want to do that shit. Just like today, people didn't want to get married and have kids and all that shit. They didn't want to do it. They did it because that's what everybody did. Now everybody's not doing it, so they can actually do what they want to do. Sorry. This is human nature. People aren't different now than they were back then. People are just dealing with different circumstances that they were back then. Back then, people were hardworking because it's the only thing to do. They didn't have distractions. Nowadays, people have distractions, so they're like, fuck work. I'm gonna be on my phone, I'm gonna play games, whatever. Stop idolizing history. You don't know what you're talking about. All right. Birth rates plummet. Labor shortages may be severe. Okay. Yeah. Words. Anyways, until next time.